So in my other video, I showed you guys like the differences between the third and fourth gen LSs, and I told you I'm building my third gen LS for my Camaro. And so I couldn't show you guys us pulling the engine out of that because I mean it happened a while ago, but I just had another fifth gen Camaro that dropped the lifter and lost some oil pressure, so ended up spinning a bottom end bearing come in. So I'm gonna be dropping the engine on it. It's the same way as that one. The only difference was this one's a 2013, so my Camaro has the hydraulic power steering. This one has electric, which is this thing here. And so compared to that one, I mean, I think they're probably about this one is probably easier, honestly, because you don't have to deal with unbolting the power steering pump and stuff. You just basically disconnect the power connectors and stuff to the box, and then you're good to go. So that's the plan, is just to show you guys how we're gonna do this. One thing is though, I already pulled the trans. There's a lot of videos. Well, there's even videos out there on how to pull the 5th gen Camaro engine too, but they're not really in depth. I mean, they kind of just show it already being pulled out and everything like that. So I'm gonna show you guys that on this. I mean, it is an LS, so it is easy, but I just wanted to give you guys a run through on it. The transmission is out already, and I did want to show you guys something on that. So on these cars, people usually pull the whole shift linkage assembly, but I like to just take the little pins out. So from here and here and here, and then you can leave that thing up there. It's not that big of a deal to pull those out. And when you pull them out, it'll slip down past this pretty easily, so you don't end up having to pull the whole exhaust. You can just take that off and slip it off and slip it out. And like I said, there's already quite a bit of videos out there on how to do those. So the next thing we're gonna be doing is pulling the headers, so that way we can get better access to the starter and some of the stuff on the side of the engine. So yeah, that's gonna be the next step. Okay, so like I said, next step is to pull the headers, but first we pulled the cold air intake. I pulled that first before we did the trans, because when you take the trans out, the engine will fall back, and so that usually pops off. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but yeah, I took the tube off to begin with. So now I'm going to pull this box, and then from there we're going to pull the headers. So in order to do that, we're going to have to pull all the spark plug boots and then take out all the tins that are holding that in place. I'm hoping we don't have to pull the spark plugs on these ones. Sometimes the headers won't drop out of the car with the spark plugs installed, so we'll just have to see how that goes. And then once the headers are out, so the 5th gen Camaro, it's a subframe engine. So in order to take the engine out, you could pull it from the top. People do pull it from the top, but I like to take them out of the bottom. So we're gonna drop the subframe for this one. And so when you do the subframe, basically all you have to do is undo the harness and lay the harness to the side, and then make sure, I guess, like all the accessories are disconnected. So like your heater core hoses would come off, your radiator hose is going to come off, your AC hose you're going to evacuate and pull off, and then you have your trans cooler down here. So those will have to come off, and then there's your engine oil cooler as well, that'll have to come off. And then once all that stuff's off, it's just going to be basically the engine sitting there bolted to the subframe. And so then you just get it to that point and hit your 4 subframe bolts and drop it out. But like I said, we'll show you progress as we go along with that. So okay, so just about got the headers out. This one's about to slip out. So is this one. I have to raise the car to pull them out from underneath. But besides that, those are ready to slip out. Got the air box out. This is the main power supply because the battery's in the back, so this is where it comes in to the front. So this cable here goes to your starter and your alternator, and this one is to the power steering. So basically just disconnect both of those, pull them off, put that back in place so you don't lose it. Now I was going to show you guys how to pull the harness off this thing and just lay it to the side like we did on this one. So if you see over there, the harness is just laying over. I was going to show you guys how to do that, but there is also a faster way. You still have to pull the harness obviously in the end, but you just undo your fuse box, take this connector out, undo these two connectors, and that leads into this main engine harness. And then you have the other two here that go to the PCM. You just undo those two, and then the harness basically just sits on the engine and it can drop out with everything. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to disconnect those and then still work on taking off the other little things so we can just get it dropped out here pretty soon. Alright, so we're a bit further along. We got both the headers out. Like I said, that's gonna include taking off all those 10 millimeters, taking off your spark plug boots and stuff. It can get out of there with the spark plug staying installed. You just kind of got to wiggle it out on its way out, but it can make it out. Next thing, we got the radiator out. It's not that big of a deal to do. You just have 2 10s, and then we got the AC evacuated and stuff. So here's one AC line. It goes here. Just take that 13 nut off. It comes off. This other one goes to your radiator for the condenser. So this one's pretty easy to do. Once you get these 10s off, you can just bend the radiator or pull the radiator forward, and then you can get to this 13. The one that sucks is this one, because it goes in like that. So if you can see, the stud comes in from the bottom. So I mean, it's doable. You just kind of take the rest of the stuff off, the 2 radiator hoses, the overflow hose, and then you have your 2 transmission cooler lines. You pop those off from underneath, and then this is an oil cooler line, so you just pop that off from the corner, and then that gets all that stuff off there. So then from there you can take the radiator and pull up on it and move it forward slightly so you can get to that nut. Once those are off, like I said, there's minimal connections. You just take your fan connector off, and then it pulls off as an assembly. So it's pretty easy. Comes out of there really easy, and it's really, you definitely want to do that, or you'll end up doing what we did on this car, which was kind of dumb, but we didn't want to undo all the connections because we were kind of in a hurry, so we just undid what we could and then ratchet strapped it to the car, so that way it wasn't going nowhere. But that definitely is the better route to go. So from here, we're basically ready to drop it out. I just need to do the heater core hoses and the fuel line, and then there isn't anything else holding it to the car, because like I said, we took off the main harness here. So as you can see, that just runs straight onto the motor. Boom, that's gonna fall down with the engine now. 2 PCM connectors, the fuse box, and then the other connectors off to the side. So not much to do there now. This part will come down with the car too, the AC lines, and you do want to do it that way because that main AC line runs under the engine over here to the AC compressor. So that honestly is kind of a pain in the ass to get out because I had to do it on the other car. So yeah, you definitely want to do this. Just take these 2 lines off for it to drop out of the car. We're gonna have to pull the bumper because 2 of the subframe bolts do sit under the bumper. It's not very hard. You just pull all these body clips right here along the front, take these 2 10s out. There's 2 10s underneath you pull those, and then from there you just come over here and do these, I think they're T20s or T25 Torx bits, and then the bumper will pull off. And that'll give you the space you need to get to the two front bolts. And then from there, we're basically ready to drop this thing out, but there is some stuff that I still need to show you underneath. So once I get the bumper off, I'll show you what needs to happen down there. Alright, so the stuff on the bottom side is you got the rack and pinion coupling. You got to undo that. And then over here on both sides you have the wheel speed sensor. It bolts into there. And then you have the brake. Well, you wouldn't usually do this. You would take the caliper off, but we can't get the wheels off because we don't have the key. So that's why those are undone. He technically did just bring the key, but it was already too late. They're already undone. But yeah, so now everything's undone. The harness, like I said, should just come down with the engine. We do still have to undo the strut towers. So when you undo the strut tower, it's just the one nut up top, and that'll drop this down, like disconnect it from the car. So then your sway bars and your tie rods and everything like that will just come with the subframe. And then we just have these 4 bolts. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And actually, I think there's another one over here. Yep, 5 and 6. So once we get the strut towers unbolted, we can get the frame to drop the subframe down on and keep going on dropping it. Okay, so this is with it dropped out. Like I said, everything just came out super nicely. The harness is chilling over here. So it just came out with the engine. And then, like I said, you can leave the accessories as long as you get the AC and just these other little things done, and it'll drop out just fine. So now that it's right here and it's a lot more open and stuff, we can start taking the accessories and pulling the harness off it and everything like that. So we'll show it as it goes. Alright, so this is it, bare engine, ready to come out, like I said. So we got the intake manifold here, and that's the rest of the harness that was on the engine. We basically did what we had to. The injectors are still connected, is the reason why the harness is here. But everything else is off the motor. So like I said, you can just drop it out with the harness still on the engine and worry about taking it off once it's out, because after that you got all this room to do. And yeah, we're just mid tear down right now, getting ready to pull it off. And Mr. Chavez here has some advice for you on how to unstick a LT lifter or a DOT lifter.
Yeah, so basically all you do, you get a, obviously you don't want to use the push rods that are in your motor unless they're bad. Like this one's got GPI, like aftermarket, so you obviously wouldn't want to use that. You use a style, like a regular OEM push rod, and you have to shave the end a little bit because the push rod diameter is just a little bit bigger than the actual DOD holes that the engine has. So you shave them so that it fits in. You just measure it, like, so you can slide it in and out very easily. And then at the end of the push rod where it has like that little like ball peen, basically it looks like, you have to shave it basically, I would say probably like a 45-degree angle basically. So that'll match the angle that the lifter sits in the engine this way. So then you put it in, so make sure it goes in and out like really smoothly. If not, when you put it in and then you end up hitting the top of it so it releases the lifter, it'll get stuck, and obviously you don't want to do that. So yeah, you do that, and you basically just smack the top of it with a brass hammer is what's recommended. You can use a regular hammer, but a brass hammer just has less shock to it, so it's better. And you basically just smack it until you hear the lifter release, and you'll know when it releases because you literally hear like a very loud click. And after that, it should be fine. You wouldn't have any more problems of them collapsing, because technically they don't actually collapse, they just stick because of sludge in the motor. So after that, it should be good, and you just have to deactivate your AFM with HP tuners. It's kind of really the only way. There is like Jimmy rig ways where you unplug certain things in the motor, but then you get lights in your dash and stuff, and nobody wants those because they're annoying. But yeah, that's basically it.
So yeah, but yeah, next thing is just to get the engine off of there. So that'll be the next step, I guess. Alright, so we got the engine torn down, just got the heads left and stuff. As you can see, it's all messed up in there. Got bearing material and stuff. That was fresh oil, so it goes to show you how fast that got dirty from it going out.
I'm gonna just toss this one. It's really neat.
And then all that stuff's fine, but if you look down here, where's my flashlight? You can see that bearing cap on cylinder number 1 got super hot, so that one definitely messed up a bearing. We don't know about any of the others. They don't look hot, but we'll have to see what the machine shop says with what they measured out to. But that's how it's looking right now. Alright, well, it's all torn down and everything. The rest of the motor checks out, so we're thinking the machine shop's just gonna bore over the cylinders, maybe just hone them, and then clean up the crank and stuff. But the heads look good. We're gonna have them resurfaced, and then obviously reseal the engine and everything like that. But yeah, what cam was it running?
It's a GPI, so it's the Nogni Performance Innovations SS3. It's their stage 3 cam, and then they do have a even heftier cam, the SS4. That they have 2 of those. There's one that you have to fly cut the pistons, and then there's the no fly cut. So obviously the fly cut pistons, that's a very, very choppy cam. But yeah, it's had stage 3 in it.
Yeah.
Pretty hard.
So this motor was making how much horse?
It was 463 on a very rich conservative tune. Honestly, I feel like with the setup that it had, it could have easily had a 485, 490 in it. But the tune was just super conservative just because of the altitude and stuff we're at, the weather.
So, but yeah, that's everything. So that's, I guess, how you pull a motor out of a Camaro, by dropping the subframe. I guess that's everything.